Okay, so we're going to kick off the panel discussion. As I said, we have David Snoke with North Carolina DOT, Stephanie Doolittle with Louisiana DOTD, and Andy Nanneman with Arkansas. There's no R in there. It throws me off. Okay. So David Snoke's going to kick off with a short presentation on North Carolina's approach to transitioning to the SNBI.
All right, I'll try and be brief. This is all very new to us, and we have laid out a plan. I can't promise we'll stick to this plan, but hopefully hearing what other states are doing and sharing will help maybe modify our plan or give us some new ideas. So in May it was published. So our largest thing to tackle, we have in-house inspection software named Wiggins. So that's the first thing that we had to tackle. Our programmers have been working really hard already to innovate the program over the last, well, 10 years it's been being worked on, but the last 2 years have really been aggressively innovating our inspection software. Which is kind of nice timing, but also just put a lot on their lap. So the program is ready to accept the new format, and right now we're trying to implement the changes to our inspection software. That's step number one for us. That's the most important part. Our programmers are very familiar with the SNBI changes, way more so than I am. But that's been going well. They like the changes in general. So our current plan right now, let's see. We have some in-house things. We kind of want to figure out what's going to be coded by field personnel, folks in the office. We have a team of our structure, inventory, and appraisal group that does coding and checks all of the coding from the inspectors. Our field inspections are done about 50-50 private firm versus in-house inspectors. So obviously there's going to be a lot of training there both ways. So that's kind of our first step. We got to figure out just kind of the workflows that'll affect the software quite a bit. We have some revisions to go with our critical find reporting tool. So we'll be working with our federal highway person, try and figure exactly what he needs, and then also plan for some method 1 requirements so that we can transfer our extended frequency. Let's see. Next step, we're going to create our own translator. I know Federal Highway is creating a translator to go between the two codes. We plan on doing our own because we have some specialty things that we know we need. Our data is used for a lot more than just submitting tape to Federal Highway, a lot more than just you know, our own bridge asset management. So we're going to create a translator for the SNBI data that can backwards fill out our tape and also fill our BMS and provide data to hydraulics and other groups that use our data, our permits section, groups like that. Let's see. So April 23 is when we're targeting for doing our first routine inspections using SNBI. That's a little bit ambitious, but that's what our programmers are pushing for, and that's what we're going to try and do. That'll give us time that if there's problems, we can wipe the slate and start over if we need to. So that's our target. Again, I mentioned our current extended interval. So just a year ago, we applied for extended intervals. Not great timing. We used the 88 memo mostly, but we at least knew somewhat about what might be included with method 1. So we tried to do kind of a hybrid. We were more strict than what the 88 memo required, so that hopefully it would be a smooth transition. So we need to kind of dig into that and see what adjustments we might need to make to our current list, but we think it should be pretty seamless. We have, I think, 700 structures that are an extended interval, and we probably need to reassess some bridges for a reduced interval as part of that method 1. So we'll start digging into that now, but probably December of 23 is when we'll probably apply for that. So just some concerns and thoughts that we have. The biggest one is new training for our staff. We have non-engineers, engineers, and inspectors, all that will need to learn the new coding guide, and it's rather massive. So that's going to be a big undertaking. We assume that'll really affect us the first 4 years, probably 2 cycles of inspections. We hope that after that it'll be pretty smooth and the data will be locked in and it won't be too bad of a problem after that. One thing that we're kind of fortunate with this kind of change, we own more than 90% of the bridges in our state. Tim, I think, talked about our secondary system being so large. So us dealing with local owners is less of a hassle than what I think a lot of you have to deal with. So really, the hurdles that we have to jump through for ourselves kind of take care of the local inventory. So that's pretty nice for us. And another thing is we also do element inspection for 100% of the state's inventory. And we hope that some of that will kind of help with transitioning to some of the SNBI coding, which we hope to pre-populate before going into the field for each inspection. We don't know if we'll be able to, but that's kind of our goal, is to get an initial pre-coding before going into the field.
Next up is Stephanie Doolittle with LADOTD. She is the Assistant Bridge Inspection Program Manager.
So I'll talk a little bit about Louisiana's plan so far, and we're kind of in the beginning stages of the development of this, and it can change also. So this is the first timeline I came up with. So published in May, effective in June. In June, when I sent my critical findings to my FHWA representative, I added those fracture critical bridges. I just kind of ran anything 3 or less that has a fracture critical yes, and then I had to go in and vet them to see it was actually the fracture critical member causing the change. So that's the first change I've made so far. In September, so just now, we've created this inventory form and starting to practice the data collection on any new bridges that have to get inventoried, just to see what's confusing, what kind of kinks we can work out starting now. And then I'm planning in January, we're asking Bridge Design to fill out a portion of that form for us, and we're going to finalize that form and create examples for them and publish it to our website, and make it part of like the 95% final plan submittal that they turn in this form with some of the data that we need. Begin collecting the scour condition rating information on the routine inspections. We're going to create it in our data collection now, just a new drop down for the new scour collection, and begin incorporating the changes in our manual. Basically develop the committee and the schedule and start working on a new manual. And then depending on when the software is ready, which I guess we'll talk about next, we'll start collecting in the field on routine inspections, probably in some of the better working districts, and see how that goes before we send it out to the whole state. And then we'll develop consultant contracts for some of the inventory data collection. And then I'm thinking in January 2024 to send out lists of any bridges that will be affected by the reduced and extended interval criteria to each districts, and to go ahead and create my team leader database with the new team leader coding. And our deadline to change the frequencies in June. That's everybody's deadline for that frequency changes. Okay, so here's just a couple first steps. Like the scour coding is a big deal for us because we've got about 1,200 bridges that would be added to that 12-month frequency strictly due to scour bin 113. And it's mainly because we have all this phase 2 and 3 analysis that's very conservative that cause our scour coding to be a 3. And that's why we're adding that field collection option, so we can start getting what's the actual field condition scour-wise instead of this conservative method that we had before. And we came up with some placeholders for what to code it otherwise. Like if it's greater than a 3, we can leave it as is. If it's a 3 and it's not posted, we can make a placeholder of a 5 based on the new scour condition rating that I show here, where a 5 is moderate scour, where the strength and stability is not affected. But then if it is posted for substructure, we can put it as a 4, where the stability of the bridge could be affected. Let's see, the next thing, the new inventory form to practice the data collection. So I have the forms here. I can show y'all. I don't want to spend too much time, but I can pull them up real quick. Each item has a link to the page in the specification, so you can see what's required for that item. There's going to be a drop-down list or an explanation of what values you need to put, the old MBI item where possible, and who's responsible for filling that out. Whether it's our HQ QA guys that do a lot of the coding checks and things like that, and we'll be doing the inventory stuff for the new bridges. Bridge design, where we're getting them to provide some information, whether it's going to be calculated by software or done in the field by the inspector. So I can pull it up real quick, not spend too much time on it. Well, I was going to show how the drop-down lists show up and stuff like that, but if it's too much, then... I'm planning to send this out in the call for the Southeast Bridge Program Managers call that I do monthly. I already kind of went through this a little bit. It wasn't finalized yet, but I did tell them I would send them a copy. So if you want me to send, if you want to see this, I can send it to you. Just catch me. So yeah, like you could just see. It'll tell you what the format is, or if they have a drop-down box. And if there's a drop-down box, you can drop it down. It gives you all the choices for anything that'll be there, whether the old coding's there, what the old number was, and who's responsible. But yeah, they did this very fast. They just went and added all these drop-down boxes, made this. So it has, this is for all, it's kind of, all the single value entries, which is a lot. And then the crossing data, which is where you have several different values, multiple value entries. The same with the span and material data, and and so on and so on. The elements and the posting data. But this is basically going to be for inventory new bridges, so I don't know how much I don't know if they're going to fill out everything. My hyperlinks are going to be, let's see, the name of it I think is the hyperlink, or the page. It's not linked here, but they'll be hyperlinked. Either the page number or the name will just take you to that page. Okay, so that's one. The other one's very similar. Well, the other one is less, because that was the one with everything, and this is the one that we'd be sending to bridge design. Okay, and it's just the single value and the multiple values, and less information that we're asking for from them. And then there's a little pop-up box that tells you the rules whenever you pull it up, and then you have your drop-down list. So yeah, the guys worked really hard. They did this so fast, and they just started a week ago or something and knocked this thing out. And I think it's gonna be a good practice to start collecting this data. So I wanted to add a few fields in AssetWise for the Method 1, since Method 1 is due sooner than the full data collection in the next 2 years. We need to have all that ready. So a few things after querying and seeing the number of bridges we could add that I saw were problem areas were mostly dealing with scour and channel conditions. So that's stuff we can start collecting now. Just add a few things to our current system. And that would be the scour field condition, the channel condition, and then the underwater condition. And then by December of next year, I want to be able to correct any data with Method 1 and do just a bulk upload to make sure everything's good to go with that. So that's what we're focusing on at first. And seeing where we get. And that's it. I'm done.
And last but not least is Andy Nannerman with Arkansas DOT. We're the only DOTDs.
Kind of like David and Stephanie, this is initial plans. Things could change and very likely will. We're pretty dynamic at Arkansas right now, so I could see things changing, but these are at least our first thoughts. Right now we're working with InspectX, and we're going to transition to using multi-asset next month. After we do that, we'll start setting up forms for migration. Currently working with multi-asset to kind of evaluate which fields need to be collected and whose responsibility it will be in the program. And then the vendor will help us with the crosswalk by the end of this year and start collecting SNBI data, hopefully early next year, so we can start seeing how it's going to work out. We might start with a select few inspection teams or go just a few fields to start off with. And then we'll start phasing out the NBI fields in late 25. There's no real major change with the reduced inspection frequency. Our current practice, we inspect annually pour bridges, posted bridges, and also fracture critical bridges. We need to spend a little bit more time evaluating method one for trying to increase inspection frequencies. Right now we're inspecting almost everything with in-house forces, and we're evaluating the workload to see if we need increased staff, but another way to help out would be increasing frequencies. We plan to also look at our fracture critical structures to see if there's a way to increase the frequency beyond what we've been doing based off our own policy. The new fields in the SNBI will require additional work from the state forces. Obviously, we talked about training. There's going to be a lot of training. So far, we kind of shared the SNBI with them. We had a conference, went over a few things, but like David said, that's a large document for our inspectors to kind of read through and digest. It's going to take a few rotations to get it all down, for sure. For our local owners, there's not going to be much of a change. We inspect almost all of our local bridges and just kind of build them. So we handle all that. They'll just be, their bills might go up because we might have to spend a little bit more time collecting data. But it's kind of insignificant for their budget anyways. And we are also working with a consultant right now to evaluate our program. And part of the scope of work is they will help rewrite our manual, including some of the changes from the new regs in SNBI. We're also currently in the process of building out our registry for all of our team leads. And you know, one of the top priorities is getting the NHI refresher training, because we have several inspectors that have been inspecting for years and years and years and might not have had a refresher within the last 5 years. So that's a top priority for us. And like I said, it's short and sweet and dynamic, so that's where we're at now. So I guess we'll turn to the panel discussion.
So we'll start the panel discussion, and we'll open it up to any questions for anybody in the audience. And if there's no questions, I have a few. We got a question.
So I have a question for David. David, you mentioned that starting early next year, you're going to do the data collection with SNBI. Yep. So is that going to be like for all the fields in SNBI? Is it going to be both NBI and SNBI side by side? Can you give me a little bit of explanation there?
Sure. So our hope is that we will do the full SNBI coding for every bridge starting then, and that we'll have a translator so that anything that can be backwards translated to the old coding items is automatically done. If there's some that need to be coded separately, then we would keep those in until we have to transition, or till we're allowed to transition to not submitting the old tape. But our hope is to just jump all the way to SNBI right away and get rid of coding as many old items as possible. We'll start with, I know y'all touched upon this, but I don't think Stephanie did, so we'll just go down the panel. How will this affect your local bridge owners? How are your local bridges handled in your state? We own 90% of the bridges, like I said. All of the municipal bridges are assigned through us to private firm inspectors, so they all come through our system. Raleigh and Charlotte do their own, but they are through firms that do inspections with us, and they use our inspection program. So all of that has gone into our software, so it'll be managed the same way.
Okay, so this affects our local owners strictly. It's less work for them because we do all of the routine inspections for our locals. And right now we have some 12 months that are required and they're considered special. And so our locals would be doing those as a 12-month special, but they don't have certified team leaders. So now the new 12-month routines will have to be done by us. So it lightens their load a little bit and increases ours a little bit. Is the main difference with the locals for us.
Just out of curiosity, do you bill the locals for your inspections? No. Yeah. We don't bill them much. It's, but we do. But for us, yeah, we inspect all the, whether it's annual because it's posted, poor, fracture critical routines, we do them all. So really the locals will not notice much of a change. Now if we do method 1, we could extend some intervals and that may help them out. But that's about the only effect on the locals.
You mentioned that you bill the locals, and maybe it's for everybody. Are you using federal monies for your bridge inspection process, or bridge inspections? And if so, how does that work in Arkansas?
It's, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's the 80-20%. So 80% of their inspections covered by feds. We cover a portion and they cover a portion.
It's the same for us, but I mean, we do most of our inspections in-house. This is the only ones we really consult out are the major river crossings or complex bridges, but they would still be at 80-20.
And we do bill the municipalities the 20%.
I have a quick. I'll just add on ours. We don't bill them for inspections, but we do bill them for load ratings.
Of the DOTs in here, how many of you do the local bridge inspections in your state? And then how many of you bill for them? Do them, but you don't build them. That's Georgia. Does anybody else have, like, do you bill?
On that topic, Nancy, Louisiana also does the underwater inspections for our local owners. So is that the same for?
Same for us. Yep.
Yeah, same here.
Same for us, we don't bill.
I will tell you briefly, in North Dakota, that was how it was done, and there was a very small amount that was billed, and now consultants do all of the locals, and they pay the consultants directly. It's hurt a lot, but
I think when Louisiana came up with the program way back, they knew better, so they just put it in our program that we were going to do it.
Larry, for the translator in April next year, can you kind of tell us how you expect it to work?
Well, it's basically going to use the data crosswalks that were put out there. I don't know the details of the programming and the software and all that, because we just have a contractor underway to do that and come up with their ideas on how best to do that. But it will be using those data crosswalks that were just posted to our website in terms of the translation portion. It is expected to be a web-enabled type application, or one that you could download if you wanted to maybe do something for your entire inventory, if someone had the idea to do that. But I don't know the details of the programming aspects or that. But
You know the optimization.
one moment, and it won't be behind UPACs.
You know the optimization tool that some states have. I used to be with Florida, and they had it, and they used that to manage their TAMP and make predictions and service life and all this other stuff. Do you have any idea how this crosswalk is going to affect that process?
Short answer, no. But it kind of depends on each agency's optimization process they use and what data items from the current coding guide they use versus what ones link or line up. So for those that are, currently maybe using some type of performance measure to optimize against in terms of a component condition rating, we don't expect there to be much of a difference there. If they're using element data to somehow optimize based on a health index or something like that, we don't expect there to be a difference there because we're just, that data transition's the best, right? It's just a one for one. So, but in terms of knowing the exact details of how that will impact it, likely going to depend on, again, what data each agency uses and what they optimize to.
So in terms of training, obviously we have the burn being updated and the coding guide, or the SNBI being updated, and then I assume the NHI classes will be updated. Is there any discussion on, from a national standpoint, of any further training on the SNBI? Obviously there's a ramp up and extra time and cost for the first iteration, so I'm wondering if there's been discussion either on the federal or state levels? I guess
with the federal level, we are already developing modules for training on the SNBI. We do plan on having that be flexible so that it can be delivered remotely or virtually or in person. Obviously, we don't currently have the resources to go to all 52 DOTs in a year. And we are hopefully to make it customizable and kind of follow the implementation time frame as new things come out. We plan on developing training on that. And so our first kind of pilot is going to be November with our internal forces and get some feedback on that training aspect, and then move that to the external sources. We are also investigating doing recordings and making those available. Those are a little challenging for us through the process. We were able to get the external presentation that was done by Zoom in May about the MBIS and the SNBI. That did get posted, but it was quite a challenge for us to do that. But we haven't given up yet, and we'll probably plan on doing some recordings to try to get it out to the greatest number of people we can.
Is this on the training? Well, we're going to do more NHI, which of course will be updated for it. But as far as what we'll do in-house is going to be a lot of guidance and training as they go. We might have a team that goes out and starts collecting some of this data, see where any trouble spots might be or any confusion might be, and kind of generalize that for the rest of our inspection staff. Since it's all internal, it kind of lets us kind of keep tabs on where the questions are coming from, where's the gray areas that they might need, training or just more clarification through policy writing or something along those lines.
It's pretty similar to what we're thinking, that we'll create a committee with at least a few representatives from each of the districts and meet at least quarterly and talk about issues, changes, try to incorporate it into our manual, and have our QA guys they're doing the inventory updates and using their spreadsheet and finding out what's going to be an issue, and then whenever we do start to get in the field, just on the job training, have our guys out there and then teaching each of the districts, helping them out, and just learning as we go.
All right. Well, that wraps up this panel discussion, and we'll move into the next one. Please give them a round of applause.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.